Hey everybody, it's NASA coming back to you with another video. I know it's been a while, so I haven't made one, but this is going to be an IV flush related video, right? If you don't know what that is, you hear me talk about it a lot. I have 2 videos about it on my channel already, so definitely check those out. It's kind of like just an example. Another one that went $70 to $500 per in a couple days. It was Baba 80 calls, and I'll show you basically what I saw and how I found that move. And the move I'm talking about is this candle yesterday on the 17th. I think it was about an 8% candle, or so from top to bottom. Yeah. So from top to bottom, about 11.5. It was green about 8% on the day, which makes sense. Came 4 from red. But essentially what you look for in these, because everyone who knows what an IV flush is, basically there's the IV run up, which crushes contracts, right? So you have the IV crush. So you run contracts up and then implied volatility, right? So into a binary event like earnings. The contracts get juiced, all the Greeks increase, right? They work against you. So basically just option sellers are supposed to win because it's historical data that makes the implied move. You want to be within that implied move for you to be able to flush it, right? Baba's implied move versus where it opened was crazy. It was flat. So it opened flat well within its implied move. So calls and puts both lost, but option sellers won. So essentially what you look for is solid reports along with upgrades, right? You got your upgrades. That was from a while ago, but you have your solid reports from earnings, right? Surge with buyback. Here's their transcript. Misses revenue because COVID policy. We expected that, but stock, it was overall a mixed report. It wasn't anything special, but the volume is what I always say look for, right? The volume. So this is the daily candle, and I'll show you where I caught it and when I alerted it, right? So this is a 10-minute chart, right? So you could see the crazy volume off open, right? This is 920, this is open, gap. And I believe, yeah, so November 17th, so yesterday, at 9:34, I called it. So I used the 3-minute candles. This is a 10-minute, but I used the 3-minute to determine if the volume's real, right? Because you could use a 1-minute or 5-minute. 1 minute doesn't have enough data for me to like. 5-minute, I feel like it's too much data for a quick scalp like this to really see stuff and see follow through. So a 3-minute, 1 plus 5 is 6, divided by 2 is 3, right? It's their mean, it's their average between the two. So I think it works pretty well for these type of things. And again, I called it at 9:34. 9:30 you open flat, beautiful opportunity. I call it at 9:34, so I call it right about here. Right around 77 I called it, and I posted on Twitter for everybody. 80s can work, nice volume. I'm up on the contracts. Rejected 78, got over that, and next thing you know, it started exploding. And these things, they went all day, right? They went all day. Like it didn't stop, and the reason for that is it was breaking every level it needed to, but while SPY was weak originally, it was going. So I mean, it was setting up beautifully. There was really no reason to not hold it. Obviously 78 was a big spot, and I mean you could see that from over here, this 80 spot, and then your 78 spot, yeah, down there. So it's a big spot. It gets over that, and there's no reason. Like, look at this 10-minute, right? You buy it off open into this opening one where it breaks this little wedge from pre. It gaps open, and there's just nothing stopping it. Gets over 80, and there's just nothing in its way. And the contracts went from, we bought them at 70. We got them at 70. They ran to 6 almost, right? So the whole point in doing this is one man's trash becomes another man's treasure, right? We get them at 70, and they go to 400 per, right? He paid 71, they went to 550. So that just goes to show it's like the leverage that comes with options. This is where I called it, right? Right here on this candle, there was no reason to get out. There was a slight pullback at 78. It got over that, got over 80, ran to 85. And SPY was selling off in the morning, and this thing was still going. So basically, with the flush, you want to play lower time frames. I use the 3-minute off open. Because if I would use the 5-minute, yeah, I still would have been in this, but my average wouldn't have been 70. It probably would have been closer to $1. But follow this volume down here, right? Follow this volume down here, right? And there's really no reason to sell at all. There was a slight pullback right here around that 82 spot. There was a slight bounce off 80. There was a reject off 78 earlier that it needed over, and it got over. It was smooth, but this is why I use the 3-minute, right? There's no reason for me to get out of that, and even on this sell, it's light. Next one's huge volume again. These 4 candles on sell side are only 870 versus 1.24 and 1.55 million off open. So that volume is what gets me in there. People are like, how do you know if you play calls or puts? Well, if it would have gone the opposite way and this would have been sell pressure down, I would have bought puts. And again, you could buy calls or puts because it's a binary event. Option sellers make the money selling the premiums most of the time. So I don't gamble into earnings. I just prefer not to do that. I'll trade earnings through, sympathy plays or whatnot, like I did with SMH this week for NVIDIA's earnings, right? So this is just the power of options. Couple minutes, started gapping, and it just never stopped. And it's one of those things that went crazy. And then speaking of SMH, because NVIDIA had earnings, so I didn't want to play it. I scalped the flush on NVIDIA. But I actually overnighted these. I overnighted these SMHs. I sold them at 190. I bought them, I think, at 102 or something. So it's pretty solid overall. But IV flush, guys. One man's trash, another man's treasure. Follow the volume. Follow the volume. Confirm a spot you want over 78, 80. 80 retest, 82 break, whatever it may be. Figure that out. Follow the volume, play level to level, and make sure the premiums make sense, right? Like, they had mixed report, but the volume confirmed they were going to go up. There's no stopping that. And then you have these premiums down here at, low a day was like 60, I think, at the day. We bought them at 70, or they were last day. They were about 50. We bought them at 70. And they ran to 500 per. So this is the power of the flush, guys. Called it here, ran to 85. Once it got, this is what you want. If you want to flush, this is what you want right here. That consolidation after earnings. Because if it sells like it did, it could have continued. If this would have been sell pressure, we could have bought it. We could have bought puts. But instead, they buy the dip. I notice it. Post on Twitter, we should be grabbing these. And we took them to the promised land. So hopefully that helps. I guess IV Flush Part 3. I appreciate you, and have a good weekend.